Today we're going to go over a couple of different ways you can use your existing styling strategies, whether that's Tailwind, global CSS, CSS modules, or inline CSS objects to work with Clerk's new components. I'm hoping to spend, maybe 10 minutes on each. But I think, this is a very fun demo for me because this was one of the biggest challenges associated with this project. And it was really one of the very early design principles. I think we didn't want developers to need to learn a new styling mechanism just to use Clerk. We really wanted you to be able to plug in whatever it is you were using. So with that, let's dive in. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have the chat open too, so if any questions come up during this, please do ask. Okay, so in this case, I think I already have a lot set up. I might actually, I'm actually going to make a new no, I won't make a new demo. I'll just roll with this. Okay. So what did I do? I already have the variables here. So I guess let me start there. So what we're really focusing on for this is not variables. So there are a bunch of variables. We can hit, what else can we hit? We can hit, looking for like the border radius, right? We can tighten everything up here if we just set border radius to like 2 pixels. There's a lot you could do with variables, but for this demo, we're going to focus on elements. And so what elements are, it's literally each individual HTML element. And so anything that's displaying on the page, we give you a way to target that element. And you can actually just inspect in CSS and look for these lock symbols, and then anything to the left is a label that you can hit within the Elements API. So elements, and we've got sign in. Hard. Let's do form button primary. I think I might stay focused on actually the form button primary, just because like buttons really are one of the hardest things to target, and or at least not target, but buttons are normally one of the hardest things to like get a perfect match on. And so I think we'll stay focused here. And I'll start just by showing off kind of the inline CSS object method. And I guess I am hesitant to say inline styles because one of our engineers corrected me. It's not quite an inline style in that it's not like targeting the style tag on an element. It's actually like a CSS and JS solution where we can override this border radius. And we have all of CSS here. We can override this border radius and set, 5 pixels. And that just smooths out the border. Here, I'll do a bigger one just for impact. All right, so much bigger border radiuses. We can do, change that text transform. If we don't like the uppercase, we can just do none. We can set the font size. We can, I mean, we can really do anything, right? I guess I don't know what the measurement is here, but yeah, so that's the general idea. What's nice about this too is we can do, say, we can hit the hover here. So we can say, you know, background color on hover is let's go like EE000. So a slightly different red. Yeah. Let's do actually something totally different. Yeah, way different color. I can set the text color here as well. That would just be the color tag. And I'll just do black. And yeah, so, you know, super simply, like that's the inline CSS object behavior. If we look at what's going on here, which might be interesting to some, the styles we're applying are actually getting added to the internal class name. And yeah, they get dumped on here, right? Here's your border radius, here's your text transform, here's your font size, and so on. Anything you define gets added after anything we defined. I might actually just replace it entirely in addition to getting added after. But there was a significant challenge in kind of making sure that we didn't, we tried really hard to not like override any user-defined styles. So I guess with that, I could actually talk about like global CSS a little bit. If you have, you know, anything with reasonably high specificity, typically your styles are going to beat out our styles. And so I'll show that just in this global CSS file. So you'll notice like our specificity is basically 0, 1, 0. I guess if you don't know CSS that well, that might not be super obvious. What that means might not be super obvious. But basically, like the way CSS works, CSS specificity. Let me pull up. This isn't, that's a great tech talk on it, but let's see if we can get the simpler. I think like CSS Tricks has a very good one. Here we go. Yeah. So basically inline style, yeah, so when I was saying 0, 1, 0, I was ignoring the inline style. I think in most common or most modern applications, you really don't see inline styles that much anymore. I think a lot of that is just due to the clunkiness of doing it with React, but also just like you can't do with true inline styles. You can't do what we did here with like targeting the hover state. So it's just, it ends up being very limiting. Technically, that is the thing that overrides everything else. But yeah, we don't even have a way to let people target that. Next thing is IDs. Again, just like not very commonly used in modern application development. We don't have any IDs throughout our components. And so we're not worried about that. So we're really just worried about these last two. And so, yeah. Or I guess we're really, like, what Clerk does is we put a 1 here and then 0, 0, 0 in these other three. So to override it, all you really need to do is either have a selector with a 2 here, a 1 here, a 1 here, or even a 1 here and a 1 here. Anything higher than 0, 0, 1, 0 will beat us out. And so I'll show that with global CSS right now. First of all, I'll do button. And I'll say background color blue. Basically, right now, we're not going to see anything changed here, but we will see that the global CSS file is there. It just overwrote it. One thing that's nice is that if you take CL form button primary, and you actually target this class name directly, you're always going to beat out our styles. And so there's an extra rule where if you tie us, the thing that matters is where in the DOM the CSS is placed. And if you actually look at where the CSS is placed right now, Clerk works very hard to get to the very top. So we are, this might be globals. That's CSS modules. That will find us. Interesting. I think so. This is us, but I don't actually know precisely how emotion works, apparently. And so basically, this is dictating our specificity. But where are the styles themselves? That's really interesting. See if I can find it through the inspector. I mean, it says it's in a style tag. Well, I apparently do not know where the styles actually live.
Did you try the second style block towards the bottom there? Because there's 2 that are added. And it's in neither of those.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this is definitely our style tag, right? Like, and I know our objective is to be at the top, but what's interesting to me is that they're not actually listed in here. And I'm guessing that this is some kind of magic, like HTML thing. I don't know. And yeah, I think we just need Nico's here to tell us how it works. Yeah, generally super surprised that it's just not there. Clearly we have the styles though, right? So it's not like a huge concern. And certainly I think the objective here was to have the styles at the top, and you're seeing it, right? Like in this case, this specificity is 0010, and then this is also 0010. And basically what we do is we put this CL internal at the very top here. And then that means anything that comes after the document with matching specificity is going to take over our styles. And that was just a very basic goal for us. We wanted to make sure that it was easy to override the default, and I think we've done that here. I'm going to stop poking around the CSS. I will figure out another time exactly where those go. It is super fascinating to me that they're not there. I wonder, it might be like chunked down somehow. Anyway, not important. The important thing is really just like knowing that the global CSS has higher specificity. I can take out everything here. I'll just take out the form button primary. So now none of these are getting applied. And instead, I could apply it all in my global CSS on this CL form button primary. And then since this is just a regular CSS file, I believe I need to do proper CSS notation here. And I'll get rid of this override that I had. Right, the syntax. Yeah, my snake case. That's a funny one. It's like, technically JavaScript supports snake case, or kebab case, I guess this is in CSS. But basically, it's really painful to use because the way you would need to do it in JavaScript is this, which like no one wants to have to put a single quote around their JavaScript keys. Anyway, yeah, so I just moved that style from the inline element into the global CSS, and that worked really well. So let's now show another option, and that's going to be CSS modules. So I'm going to take this file, this home module CSS. I could just start a new file. New file. I'm going to call this Clerk.module.css. And I'm actually just going to start by copying this stuff over from globals. And so I guess where I am now, I'm back to my standard, right? I have the primary color change through variables, but then I have the small text, I've got the all uppercase, the hover effect, and so on. And so now we want to hit this with a CSS module. And the way that works is really cool. We'll just do, import styles from, what is the syntax here? Styles /CSS. Styles / Clerk.module.css. And now I can actually plug these in to the element. And so the way CSS modules work is that it creates a dictionary on the styles object when you do the import. And so form button primary here is now styles.form button primary off the import. And yeah, you can see it already applied. this is another one that I think is good to like look at the underlying CSS to see how it works. So this is now, like we still have, this is the default Clerk one. This is the generated class name from CSS modules. So if I change this, for example, just so you can tell, like it's using the file name and then the class name as it's defined here. But so if I change this to form button foo, now I have form button foo. And so CSS modules ultimately just generates class names that have the styles. And again, since Clerk makes this effort to get to the very top, then your CSS modules end up having, it's the same specificity, but since it's defined further down in the file, it overrides the Clerk default internal styles. Sweet. Let's now jump into Tailwind. Hopefully, like, this was a good indicator of how Tailwind is going to work. I think a lot of people, like, behind the scenes don't really understand that CSS modules is just generating a random class name and like throwing it on the element. But that's really all it does. And ultimately, like, Clerk's API here is just accepting random class names to add to our elements. And so in this case, we will add, so in this case, we added the CSS modules class name, but now we're going to do Tailwind, and we'll actually just be able to type Tailwind classes and have them directly applied to this button. But before I can do that, I have to actually install Tailwind. So Tailwind Next.js. And I'm going to shut this down. We're going to install all this stuff. I think the Tailwind installation is very, very interesting because it's just like, without much context, they just like say, yeah, install this stuff. I think for any other like old programmers like me, it's a little unnerving. Like, oh, like, what is all this stuff doing? But all in all, I think they're right that like as long as you provide just a magical DX experience, people won't care about having to copy and paste a couple things. So this one was it's globals. And then it looks like we can restart. All right. So let's now go back. We're going to kill off our module here. But we're going to go one by one, and we're going to recreate this in Tailwind. But instead of doing it through a separate file, we're still going to do it inline in this elements. So a lot like the inline CSS objects, but now with Tailwind classes. So I am not the best at Tailwind. So I might need to reference the docs over time, but I believe it's something like rounded 1.5 rem. And I know Tailwind has like shortcuts. I'm just like, this is how you pass an absolute value in to Tailwind. And I'm not going to attempt to do it another way. Oh, shoot. I want to just make sure I click save here while it's unstyled and that everything works. What's going on here? Ooh, that's surprising. Can't find module content. Around globals. Maybe I missed something on my install.
I usually have to restart the dev server after installing Tailwind. I don't know if you did that.
I did. Well, let me see if it throws right on build. I wasn't even looking at it, just assuming it would work. Okay. I kind of feel like I missed a step.
I mean, you do have both a package lock and a yarn lock in there. I don't think that's the issue necessarily, but
yeah, that's the Next.js thing. I think I might have added this to the wrong file.
Yeah, that's supposed to be in the Tailwind config.
Yep. All right. Hopefully that does it. That's looking better. Cool. Yeah, I was so complimentary of the install process and I messed it up. Whoops. Okay. All right, so yeah, here we are. We're back to just the color impacting anything. Do you guys know that apparently I'm weird for like typing red instead of tomato? It's like split our dev team. Who knew? I had no idea that tomato was a color. But yeah, apparently some people use tomato for debugging. I've never heard of such a thing. I think it came up because we don't have tomato working here yet. There we go. Here, since I think I'm running fast, I'm gonna test what tomato looks like. All right, background color. Yeah. I don't want double quotes. Oh, wow. Yeah. It's a very
it's less aggressive.
It's a very beefsteak tomato. Yeah, it's not like a vibrant, juicy tomato. That looks like a Wendy's fast food watery tomato. Okay.
Been sitting out for a couple days.
I gotta refresh and get back to our regularly scheduled programming. Cool. So we wanted to start copying this in Tailwind. So I believe it's rounded 1.5 rem. All right, cool. So I did the first one right. I'm just looking at it, refresh over there. Text transform, I have no clue what it's going to be. Text transform. So normal case. I believe there's a way to get like autocomplete working here as well, though I'm not totally sure what it is off the top of my head. Yeah. Well, maybe we can play with that after. And then font. So font size, I think, yeah, just text base will get us to 1 rem. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Ian, we were talking about this just before. The Tailwind is setting line heights higher than font sizes. Anyway, okay, so there we are. I think we've got everything but our hover done now. And so now we'll do the hover. And then it's BG. Nailed it. Awesome. And then hover text black. I hope that was it. Awesome. Yeah, so that was 4 ways of using our components. We pulled that off in 30 minutes. Trying to think if there's any other high-level things. I mean, I guess we can like look here and just show how it works. So yeah, with CSS modules, you know, the CL form button primaries was still there, and then it was a single class name. For Tailwind, basically the exact same thing, except instead of adding a single class name, we're just adding all of the Tailwind class names. So super simple, really. Yeah, I'm understating how hard it was to make it work, but it's super simple. I think, yeah, maybe we can actually look into this Tailwind autocomplete. Just to see if we can get it working with Clerk. Oh, there's an official IntelliSense plugin. So I guess we can just download that. If that's all it takes, and I probably should have had this a while ago. And then I'd imagine that there's at least one more step. Let's check. I just want to see if like the okay. All right, so it's working with divs. Now, is it going to work in our thing by default? Just add a different one here. Let's do 4, and why not? Then, yeah, I don't think this is it. Yep, that's just searching the document. So let's see what we have to do to get it to target other props. So this looks like it'll be it. Class attributes. I'm mostly just looking for how I actually set the extension settings.
It's them in your settings JSON file.
Where is that?
So if you Command Shift P, or it's a Command, I don't know what the shortcut is. I say settings JSON. Yeah.
Got it. And just in here we can do Tailwind the class attributes. Okay, so I guess we probably want to keep the existing ones. What is NG class for? Does anyone know?
NG class is Angular.
Angular, got it. And then let's just add elements. I need to add this. Proper JSON syntax. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if I have to restart this flake file at some point. Hit save, close it, reopen it, see if that does it for us. Oh, I actually wonder if we're going to need to. Yeah, we might need to go a step further here. I have two ideas. Let's try this first, see if this fixes anything. I don't think it has. Then let's try doing appearance. I just don't know how this like parser works. Well, my feeling is it like try appearance. Whoa. That's optimistic. I don't think these were here before, right? Double check.
No, it looks new to me.
Yeah, okay. I guess that was it. Appearance. I was expecting that to fail. Okay, that's exciting. Cool. Yeah. So this definitely looks like it's working now. If I hit.
Woohoo!
We got all a Tailwind here. All right. That was a fun little bonus.
I have to add that to our docs.
Yeah. That's really all I've got. You know, I guess I could say that like the next thing we want to do with this is start adding support for component libraries. And so the idea is that like styled components, for example, let me grab a styled component snippet, doesn't result in class names. It results in a component itself that just renders children. And so the hope would be for something like this, that you could pass us I think the best syntax we've come up with so far is just like, sorry, maybe like props, and then button props. And basically, oops, This would also work for Chakra. There's a question of like, can we do? I don't know what this. That was just TypeScript. There's a question of like, can we do this? I think we can do this, and maybe we'll add this as like a variant. But for something like Chakra, where people are actually mapping other components to us, so let's look at like Chakra Buttons. Yeah, it's like people might want to do this instead. So this would give them a way to like modify inline other props on whatever their component is. And there's certain libraries, I think it's mainly Chakra, that like that would be particularly helpful for. That's what's going on. Yeah, so this is what we're working towards next. This actually has a lot of like extra foundational work we need to do. We're actually going to make it so that Clerk in the future runs in SSR mode. So right now, Clerk works in SSR mode, but the HTML doesn't actually load on the page until it reaches the client. And we're going to switch our architecture around so that basically directly from the server, we'll be rendering the component. And I guess I can show what I mean by that here. Like right now in this source, if I just look at the body, there's basically nothing in here, right? It's just the empty next tag. In the future, that's going to have the whole form instead of like flickering slightly at the start here. With that change, we'll be able to start accepting React components reliably. We could have made it work with styled components from the start here. But we hit issues with Chakra basically. The reason why is because our React is actually a different React. When you're in a different React and you try to use someone else's hooks, you break the rules of hooks. And so Chakra uses hooks, and that's where things were breaking down. So in the new world with SSR, we're going to be using one React for React apps at least. Well, really for all apps. The integration pathway in other JavaScript frameworks will still be adding an extra React. But yeah, for most developers, it's just going to be one React. Loading time is going to be faster, and we'll be able to start taking React props or React components as things to render. When we do that, these class names all disappear. So there's not even going to be an internal class name anymore. It's just going to be whatever your component renders. And yeah, that'll also be a sharper knife, I'd say. You can really, if you misuse it, you'll be able to break a lot of things. But I think sometimes that's just the fun of development. You won't break our security model, but you might break your UX. But what's cool is that it does grant you just a lot more flexibility beyond, which honestly is like so much more flexibility that we're giving people today than we did 2 weeks ago. So that is all I've got. I think I'm going to wind this down. I'm just
Checking. Cool. Yeah, okay, that's all I got. I'm going to wind this down. Thanks everyone for coming today. Have a great weekend. Play with Clerk a bit. I'll be, I'm sure, in the Discord throughout the weekend. And yeah, this was a very fun week for us. So thanks for tuning in throughout and taking a look at our new components. Super excited for everyone to start building on them. Have a good one.